It all begins in the detention classroom at Bayview High School. It's a Monday, and 5 students have ended up there for the same reason. The chemistry teacher decided to check every single backpack. Any student who had their phone on them, even if it was just sitting in their bag, was given detention. That's how the 5 ended up together. Let's meet the cast of characters. First, there's Nate. This guy is bad to the bone. Rumor has it he already has a DUI, and he's still in high school. It's also alleged that he's Bayview's drug dealer. Detention is like his second home, he probably spends more time there than in class. But despite all of that, he's ridiculously attractive. The kind of guy who's trouble, and everyone knows it. Then there's Addie. Addie is your stereotypical popular blonde. She's a cheerleader, or at least, it feels like she should be, and she's dating Jake, the captain of the football team. Together, they're the school's it couple. Addie was even crowned prom princess, not queen, but we'll get to that later. She doesn't usually get into trouble. She's a decent student. The only reason she's here is because her phone was in her bag during class. Next, there's Cooper Clay. He's your classic jock. He's also Jake's best friend, though he and Addie aren't particularly close. Cooper's the kind of guy who's already being scouted for the MLB, Major League Baseball. He plays like a pro, built like an athlete, lean and muscular, with a southern accent that turns heads. But unlike Jake, Cooper's not a stereotypical jock. He's polite, social, and generally minds his own business. He's also dating one of the most popular girls at school. He's doing his own thing, and doing it well. Even in detention, Cooper stands out. The teacher assigns them an essay titled, "Why Technology Will Be the Death of Us All." Cooper starts writing with his right hand, which is unusual, because he's left-handed. His dad has always told him, whatever you do with that left hand, save it for baseball. Use your right hand for everything else. So Cooper trains himself to write with his non-dominant hand to protect his pitching arm. So, he ends up in detention, but unlike the others, he's not a regular there, which makes things all the more interesting. Then we have Brownin. Brownin is the classic overachiever. She's the sore thumb in this whole situation. Her entire family went to Yale, her dad, her mom, her grandfather, her uncles, cousins, nieces, everyone. It's practically a family tradition. She's a straight-A student, on track to become class valedictorian. She's never even had detention in her life, until today. So, why on earth is Bronwyn in detention? She's there for the same reason as Addie and the others. Mr. Avery, their chemistry teacher, found phones in their backpacks during class. Mr. Avery despises technology, hates it. He's so anti-tech that he makes every student open their backpacks at the start of class and spends a good 5 to 10 minutes digging through them to make sure no one brought a phone. It doesn't even matter if they're using it or not, simply having it in their bag instead of in their locker is enough to earn detention. So, when he found phones in several backpacks, he was furious. And of course, he was most disappointed in Brownin. "You're my top student," he said. "What's going on?" Brownin stood up and said, "Sir, I'm being wrongfully accused. That is not my phone. I don't know how it got there, but I assure you, it's not mine. This is my phone." She pulled her actual phone out of her pocket. Double detention. She was digging her own grave, but that's just how transparent she is. Then Addie chimed in. "That's not my phone either. I wouldn't even own a phone with that kind of screen. That's definitely not mine." Cooper added, "Yeah, same. That's not my phone. I don't know where that came from." Even Simon stood up. "Someone's framing us. Those aren't our phones. I'd know if it were mine, and I don't think any of them would be dumb enough to bring a phone in their backpack either. Everyone knows better. You'd be an idiot not to leave it in your locker." The whole class was confused, except for one person. The only student who actually had his real phone in his backpack. Bad boy Nate. Mr. Avery wasn't buying the conspiracy. So, What, you're telling me someone out there cares enough to go out, buy several phones, sneak them into your backpacks, just to get you all detention? For what purpose? This is the worst joke I've ever heard. The students insisted, you have to believe us, those aren't our phones. But Mr. Avery didn't care. Detention after school. All of you. Same classroom. I want a 400-page essay on why technology is ruining the future. Brownin, sitting at her desk, groaned. Is this going to be on my permanent record? Mr. Avery looked at her. Speaking of which, hand over your other phone. She paused. Mr. Avery, doesn't it give you at least a little pause that you're confiscating 2 phones from me? What high schooler has 2 phones? That just doesn't make sense. He thought about it for a moment, then shrugged. He hated technology too much to care. He took both phones from her and said, see you all after class. Later, during detention. All 5 students are in the classroom, working on their 400-word essays. Simon is grumbling the entire time. I think I left my water bottle in my last class. Mr. Avery, can I go look for it? Please? Mr. Avery replied, this is detention, not a free period. You're not wandering the halls. There are cups at the back. Drink tap water from the sink. Simon groaned, walked to the back of the room, and started filling a cup. The water looked gunky, old, slightly off. That's when it happened. Boom. All the kids dropped their pencils and looked around, startled. Simon was at the window. All the kids dropped their pencils and looked around, startled. Simon was at the window. Oh my God, he said. Who the hell gets into a car accident in the school parking lot? The others jumped up and ran to the window. Sure enough, a red Camaro had been T-boned by another car. It wasn't a minor fender bender, it was a full-on collision. The kids stared in shock. Mr. Avery sighed. Great. I guess I should make sure no one's hurt. He looked around at the students and pointed to Brownin. You're in charge. Make sure no one leaves this room while I'm gone. Keep working on those essays, and don't even think about pulling out your phones. And then there's Simon Kelleher. Simon is the gossipy type, and not just in passing. He runs a scandalous app called About That, essentially the school's version of Gossip Girl. Everyone knows Simon is behind it, and everyone is terrified of him. He posts other students' secrets, big, dark, dangerous secrets, and the scary part? They're always true. He never gets the facts wrong. He always has the best sources. Sure, he only uses people's initials, but the context clues make it painfully obvious who he's talking about. And somehow, Simon always knows everything. They were alone and unsupervised when Simon grabbed his little cup of water, walked to the front of the classroom, and said, "Attention, class. Look at us, we're like a stereotypical high school movie, aren't we? We've got Addie, the prom princess over there. Cooper, the jock. Bronwyn, you're the brain. Nate, you're the criminal. I mean, seriously, it's like we're straight out of a high school movie." He paused, then added, "And I'm the omniscient narrator." Bronwyn frowned. That's not even a thing in high school movies. Oh, but it is in real life, Simon replied smugly. No one was going to argue with him, Simon was genuinely terrifying. Every student in that class feared him. Most of them had never had anything written about them online, thankfully, but Simon was infamous for ruining lives. He destroyed friendships, ended relationships, and was known to publicly cancel people. This was not someone you crossed. So, the rest of the students just went along with it. Everyone, grab some water, Simon said. Let's toast to this high school movie. He lifted his cup and downed the entire thing in one sip. Moments later, he dropped the cup, collapsed to the floor, and started wheezing. Panic erupted. Bronwyn was the first to rush to his side. "Simon! Look at me. Are you okay?" When he didn't respond, she said, "I need to call 911. but the students' phones had been locked away. She sprinted to the next classroom and frantically told the teacher they needed to call an ambulance. Back in the detention room, chaos unfolded. Simon looked like he was choking, his eyes bulged, his lips turned blue. "He's having an allergic reaction," Nate shouted. "Get his EpiPen." The students frantically searched Simon's belongings but found only regular pens. Just then, Bronwyn returned with several teachers, including Mr. Avery. Emergency services had already been called, but every second mattered. Mr. Avery instructed one of them to run to the nurse's office to get an EpiPen. Bronwyn bolted down the hall and burst into the nurse's office. It was empty. She rushed to the container labeled EpiPens, but it was completely empty. Another teacher ran in. "Did you find one?" "No," Bronwyn replied breathlessly. "The jar's empty." "Do they keep a backup?" They tore through the drawers, but still found nothing. Just then, they heard the sound of sirens approaching. The ambulance had arrived. By the time Bronwyn and the teacher returned, the paramedics were already loading Simon onto a stretcher. The students were in tears, visibly shaken. It was the most traumatic event they had ever experienced. Mr. Avery turned to them. "Take your phones and go home. I don't think we'll be finishing detention today." But just as the students were about to leave, he paused. "Wait. You're sure he only drank water before this happened?" "Yes," they confirmed. "He didn't eat anything while I was gone?" "No, we're sure," someone said. Mr. Avery frowned. "Well, he has a severe peanut allergy. If it was just water, maybe it was something he ate earlier?" Delayed reactions aren't unheard of. Still, he picked up Simon's cup. "Let's keep this, just in case someone wants to look into it." He waved them out. "All right. Take care, kids." Addie was hysterical. She immediately called her boyfriend, Jake, who came to pick her up and drive her home. This is when we get a glimpse into the students' personal lives. Addie, the popular blonde girl, didn't have the perfect life everyone assumed she did. Her home life was a mess. Her mother was careless, self-centered, and treated Addie more like a tool than a daughter. All she wanted was for Addie to marry rich. Ever since she was a child, Addie had been forced into beauty pageants. She was always runner-up, never first. Her mother's advice? "It's not great, but it's good enough to land a man who'll take care of you for life." She'd win prom princess, but never prom queen. Her mother didn't care about what happened to Simon. When Addie got home, her mom was too busy making out with her latest boyfriend, Justin. Addie described him like this: "Justin is 12 years younger than my mom, 5 years younger than her second husband, and 15 years younger than my dad. At this rate, she'll be dating Jake next." To make matters worse, her mother had once taken her to get birth control and told her, "Don't say no too much. There'll always be another girl who says yes. And you don't want to lose your man." What kind of mother says that? Meanwhile, back at school, Nate and Bronwyn were still lingering. "I don't have a ride," Bronwyn confessed. "Didn't think I'd end up in detention. I might call an Uber or something." Nate shrugged. "I can give you a ride. Hop on." He gestured to his motorcycle. Bronwyn recoiled. Her face pale. "Simon, he's gone," she whispered. "He's dead." The next day at school, the atmosphere was heavy and silent. Every homeroom teacher read a statement that had been officially approved by the school administration. It began, "Simon Kelleher, one of our students, one of your classmates, passed away last night due to complications from a severe allergic reaction. Simon had been rushed to the hospital, and the ambulance arrived quickly, but it wasn't enough to save his life." The school announced that counseling would be available to any student who requested it. However, for those directly impacted, Simon's closest friends, his teachers, and especially the students who had been in the detention room with him, counseling sessions were mandatory. These appointments had already been scheduled. This was the last thing Bronwyn wanted. The night before, she had argued with her mother for hours, insisting that she didn't need professional help. And now, she had no choice. On her way to the counseling session, Bronwyn walked through the hallways with her friends. Her friends, like her, were academic overachievers. They weren't the popular crowd, but they were brilliant, future Ivy Leaguers who prioritized grades and college applications above everything else. Naturally, they didn't like Nate. Why would they? He had a reputation as a criminal, an alleged drug dealer, and someone who couldn't even be bothered to show up for class most days. In their eyes, he was wasting his life. So when Bronwyn stopped and had a full-blown conversation with him in the hallway, her friends were shocked. Even more surprising was the way she looked at him. Her eyes seemed glued to Nate, completely ignoring everything around her. After they parted ways, Bronwyn walked back to her group, and her friends immediately reacted. What was that?" one of them sneered. "He looked like he literally just rolled out of bed." "Wait, did you go home with him last night?" "He dropped you off," another asked in disbelief. "I hope you doused yourself in Lysol after getting off that bike." "That's disgusting." Clearly, they didn't like Nate. At all. Bronwyn ignored their comments and walked into the counseling office. Internally, she admitted she didn't enjoy counseling, but she did feel strangely at home in this office. Why? Because the high school counselors weren't just mental health professionals, they were also the ones who helped students with college applications. Bronwyn had been in and out of this office countless times, working closely with the counselors. She loved the idea of Yale. Her grandfather had been a professor there. There was a long-running joke in her family that the Rojas lineage wouldn't even exist without Yale. So many of them had met their spouses, started businesses, and built lives through Yale connections. For her family, it wasn't just about going to an Ivy League school. If it wasn't Yale, it wasn't good enough. As Bronwyn waited for her scheduled session with a professional therapist, the guidance counselor approached her with a warm smile. "Hey, Bronwyn. I know you've got a lot going on right now with everything that happened with Simon," he said gently, "but I wanted to mention, there are a few juniors who really need help with chemistry. If you'd be willing to tutor them, it would be a great addition to your college application. Just something to think about." "Kim, I will have to decline, I'm already overcommit, and it was probably for the best," Bronwyn said. What we learn from this entire exchange is that Bronwyn absolutely hates chemistry class. It was the one subject she almost failed. By midterms, she was sitting on a solid D. And it's not like she didn't try, she studied every single day. But chemistry just wasn't something she could wrap her head around. Naturally, the idea of tutoring someone in chemistry was out of the question for her. Things only started to improve when, somehow, she began acing her tests. She eventually made it through the class, but it had gotten so bad that her guidance counselor sat her down and said, "Have you considered schools outside of the Ivy League?" That moment was a wake-up call. Bronwyn realized she needed to get her act together. She had nearly jeopardized her academic future because of chemistry class. After that conversation, though she didn't say much about it, everyone returned to their regular classes. Then, an announcement came over the loudspeaker: "Would Nate Cooper, Addie Prentice, and Bronwyn Rojas please report to the principal's office immediately?" The three students grabbed their bags and made their way to the front desk. When they arrived, they were greeted by the principal and a police officer, Officer Hank. He sat them down and said, "We just received the autopsy results. This shouldn't take long, we just have a few questions." Simon died from a large ingestion of peanut oil shortly before his death. This wasn't a delayed allergic reaction, it was the result of something he ingested moments before. His parents found this incredibly strange. Simon was extremely cautious about what he ate and drank. "Are you certain all he had was a cup of water before he collapsed?" "Yes," the students replied, "we're sure." "Well, here's the issue. We tested that cup, and it contained a significant amount of peanut oil. So we can only assume that whatever Simon drank was contaminated. We're now trying to determine how the peanut oil got into that cup." The students sat in stunned silence. Where did Simon get the water from? Officer Hank asked. From the tap in the chemistry classroom, they answered. And the cup, where was it? It was on the counter, upside down. He just grabbed one from the top of the stack. Did you see any liquid dripping from it beforehand? Was there anything already in the cup? No, they said, not that we noticed. So he just filled it with water and drank it right away? Not immediately. We had a short conversation. There was a car accident outside, and Mr. Avery went to check on it. He gave a brief speech. We also talked about how weird it was that phones had been planted in our backpacks. Speaking of the phones, Brownon asked the principal, has anything come of that? Are we going to be held responsible? Because those phones weren't ours. Someone clearly planted them. The principal responded, yes, your chemistry teacher reported the situation. No one has claimed the phones since, so we're leaning toward it being a prank. You won't be punished. But we still need to ask, did any of you see someone put something in Simon's drink? No, they answered again. Why would we? Did any of you have a problem with Simon? The officer continued. We know about the app he ran. Have you ever been featured on it? Everyone shook their heads, except Nate. Yeah, Nate admitted. Lots of times. Stupid stuff, hookups and parties. Did that bother you, Nate? Did you have a problem with Simon? Not really. The others didn't suspect Nate. Given his lifestyle, allegedly dealing drugs, having a DUI, being exposed for kissing someone at a party hardly seemed like something that would push him over the edge. The officer turned to the others. You've never been on the app. But were you worried that one day you might be? That Simon had dirt on you he hadn't revealed yet? No, they answered. We weren't. All right, Officer Hank concluded. We'll reach out if we have any more questions. You're free to go. Later that day at Cooper's home, after school, Cooper was clearly more stressed following the police questioning. But his father wasn't cutting him any slack. Coop, remember, you've got that showcase on Saturday. A showcase is essentially a high-stakes baseball game attended by college scouts, looking for new talent to recruit and offer scholarships to. Cooper's mom gently pushed back. Kevin, don't you think? Considering everything that's happened, he could have one day off? No, his dad insisted. Business as usual. Lying around won't bring that poor kid back. Cooper, get ready for Saturday. Right at that awkward moment, the doorbell rang. It was Cooper's girlfriend, Keely. She's not only the most attractive girl in school, but also incredibly kind. She's Addie's best friend, and together with their boyfriends, the four often go on double dates. Key snuck Cooper a pack of red vines, a small rebellion against his strict Major League Baseball diet. It's one of the many things she does that shows how well she knows him. Every guy at school is jealous of Cooper for dating her, and rightfully so. She greeted his parents, making casual conversation. Meanwhile, Cooper received a text message, "Hey handsome. Hey. Can I see you tonight? Miss you. Miss you too." Addie knew she should have been doing homework, but instead she was lying in bed with Jake. Her mom was out, and her mind kept drifting to Simon. The investigation, and the stress of the police interrogation. She was so anxious, she broke out in a pimple, on her forehead, no less. As she lay with Jake, tracing the outline of his biceps, she couldn't help but think, he wasn't as muscular as Cooper. That moment they had shared after Simon's death had somehow shifted something in her. She noticed Cooper more now, and Jake a little less. Then Jake said, "By the way, Simon's mom called." "She called you?" Addie asked. "Yeah. She wants me to be a pallbearer at the funeral." "Oh. Wow. Of course, you have to," Addie said, stunned. She had almost forgotten Jake and Simon were best friends back in middle school. But when high school started, Jake had a glow up. He got ripped, became a football star, and started hanging out with other athletes, mainly Cooper and TJ. Simon, on the other hand, remained the weird kid. It almost seemed like Simon created the gossip app just to stay connected to Jake, to get his attention. At first, the app exposed serious issues, sexual harassment and assault at parties. But over time, Simon realized people didn't want a hero. They wanted gossip, cheating, secrets, and scandals. That's when everyone began to hate him. They didn't respect him, but they were afraid of him. People would even ask Jake how he could have ever been friends with Simon. But Jake always responded, "Just don't do shady stuff, and you won't end up on his site." Finally, at Nate's home, this was our first glimpse of Nate's living situation, and it was a stark contrast to Bronwyn's world. His lawn was overgrown, the grass yellow and knee-high. The paint on the house was peeling. The front door didn't even have a lock anymore, but no one thought there was anything worth stealing inside. When Nate walked in, his dad was passed out drunk on the sofa, bottle still in hand. His father used to be a functioning alcoholic who worked in roofing. But after falling off a ladder, he went on workers' compensation and now survives on state disability, which he spends almost entirely on alcohol. That's why Nate deals drugs. Someone has to keep the lights on. Someone has to pay the mortgage. And this is the only way Nate knows how to make that happen. His mother had left the family long ago. When Nate was 14, his mother was struggling with serious mental health issues. One of his earliest memories of her was while she was washing dishes. She accidentally dropped a plate, and it shattered on the floor. While that in itself wasn't unusual, her reaction was. She sat down next to the broken pieces and started crying. Then, in what he later recognized as one of her episodes, she opened the windows and began throwing all of their possessions outside. At first, things were manageable. But over time, she stopped taking her prescribed medication and began using cocaine. She fell in with the wrong crowd and would disappear for weeks at a time. Then one day, when Nate was 14, she suddenly reappeared and told him, "You need to come to Oregon with me. I live in this amazing commune now. It's so much better than here, we could start over. Pack your bags. I'll pick you up tonight." Nate believed her. He ran into his room, packed his things, and waited by the front door. But she never showed. He waited all night. That was the last time he ever heard from her. Later, while making Chinese food in his rundown kitchen, his father still passed out on the couch, Nate received a text. It was from one of his casual hookups. Nate was the type of guy who preferred to keep things emotionally detached. He believed that if he saw a girl more than once in a week, she'd start getting attached, something he tried to avoid at all costs. Still, after the events of the week, he was in need of a distraction. As he considered replying, another message came in, this one from a friend. "Have you read that Tumblr post going around?" Nate clicked the link. The post was written in first person and read as follows. "I got the idea of killing Simon while watching Dateline. I'd been thinking about it for a while, it wasn't something that just popped into my head. The biggest challenge was figuring out how not to get caught. I'm not a hardened criminal. But I'm also too good-looking for prison. On the show, a guy murdered his wife. As the police started digging, they realized that everyone hated her, a coworker, neighbors, even her husband. She'd cheated, lied, manipulated. It took the police ages to catch him. And even then, he wasn't particularly smart. Simon was like that. He was the kind of person people fantasize about getting rid of. Everyone at Bayview hated him. I was just the only one with the guts to actually do it. So, you're welcome." Nate's stomach dropped. He immediately texted his friend back, "Where the hell did you find this?" His friend responded, "I don't know, it's just circulating. Do you think it's a joke? Or could this actually be from Simon's killer?" The next day at school, the 4 students from detention, Brownon, Nate, Addie, and Cooper, returned to school the next day. But the atmosphere had shifted. Everyone was side-eyeing them. Whoever wrote that Tumblr post clearly had inside knowledge of what happened during detention. It didn't make sense otherwise. How could someone have poisoned Simon without being in the room? The implication was obvious: whoever wrote the post was likely one of the 4 students in detention. Even the police seemed to be narrowing their focus to the group. And now, with this anonymous confession making the rounds online, the entire school was starting to believe the same thing: one of them might be a murderer. And guess who's taking the brunt of the suspicion? Nate. Because he already has a criminal record, everyone automatically assumes he must have been the one to kill Simon. But the real question is, did Nate even care enough about Simon exposing his casual hookups to commit murder? It doesn't seem like it. Even Bronwyn was perplexed. When she got home, she talked about it with her younger sister, Maeve. Maeve isn't the type of student who dreams of going to Yale, like Bronwyn. When Maeve was just 7 years old, she was diagnosed with leukemia. She came close to dying more than once. It wasn't until she was 14 that she was declared fully in remission. Because of her illness, Maeve never really had a chance to adjust to a typical school life. But that's okay. She's come to terms with it, and so has Bronwyn. Bronwyn gets the awards. She gets the grades. She gets into Yale. Thankfully, their parents focus on that, and everyone cuts Maeve some slack. So even Maeve is kind of thankful for her sister. Bronwyn is the one dealing with all the pressure, which means Maeve gets to relax a little. Maeve is talking to Bronwyn when the doorbell rings. It's Nate. He doesn't even know why he showed up at her house that day. All he knows is that he was sitting at home, staring at the painkillers he was supposed to be selling. He thought about taking one. The stress was unbearable. After all, they were all under investigation for murder. But he didn't. If he did, he knew he'd just end up passed out next to his drunk father. No one would pay the mortgage. Nothing would get done. He'd just waste away. Nate knows he has an addictive personality. So instead of taking the pill, he got on his bike. He didn't even know where he was going, but somehow, he ended up at Bronwyn's house. Luckily, her parents weren't home. She let him in. Maeve, wingwoman of the year, quickly chimed in. "Oh hey, we're just studying," she said. Nate walked inside and noticed the piano. "You guys play?" he asked. "Bronwyn plays," Maeve said. "She's really good. You should play for him." Awkward silence. Bronwyn hesitated. "Okay. I guess I'll play something." She sat down at the piano and began to play. We switch to Nate's point of view as he bikes home. He still doesn't understand why he went to Bronwyn's house, but he's glad he did. Listening to her play was the first time in ages he felt like a kid again. Like things might be okay. Meanwhile, at Addie's house, there's a knock on the door. Officer Hank has come by to ask her a few more questions. Addie is already unraveling. Her mom? Instantly flirting with the officer. Classic. Officer Hank asks Addie if she was in the nurse's office on the day Simon died. "No," she replies. "You were, though. It's in the nurse's log." I don't remember." "You don't remember going to the nurse's office that day?" "I go there a lot for headaches." "Oh, maybe I was on my period. I probably went to get some Tylenol." "So just Tylenol, that's it?" "Yeah, why does that matter?" "Well, one of the things we're looking into is why the nurse's office didn't have any EpiPens that day. A lot of students remember seeing the EpiPen jar full in the morning. By the afternoon, it was gone. We're trying to figure out if anyone who went to the office might have noticed anything." Addie replies awkwardly, "I don't even know what an EpiPen looks like." The officer nods. "It says you were in the nurse's office at 1 p.m. We just wanted to see if the EpiPens were still there at that time." Her mom is too busy batting her lashes at the officer to defend her, but Addie's sister steps in. "Are you accusing my sister of stealing EpiPens? Get out of our house." Her husband's an attorney. She knows the rules. Officer Hank leaves. Soon after, Jake picks Addie up to go to the beach. She spent all day doing her makeup, trying to cover a pimple on her forehead and getting her hair into beachy waves. Jake shows up, with TJ, his best friend. Addie hates TJ. Sorry, TJ says, my car broke down. I told Jake I wasn't going to come, but he picked me up anyway. Jake looks at Addie. You're wearing that? She's bundled up, because it's cold. Jake frowns. We're meeting a lot of people at the beach. Can you wear something cuter? Addie goes upstairs to change. Her sister watches with disapproval. You're going to freeze at the beach in that. It's fine, Addie replies. She even wears heels. Jake likes heels. The car ride is miserable. She's already cold, and she hates listening to Jake and TJ talk. She hates everything about TJ, even the way he says, "Hey, I like that song. Turn it up." Now she has to hate the song too. But what she hates most is that she slept with TJ. 1 month after she slept with Jake for the first time. Addie's mom had always drilled into her that she had to be the best at everything, especially at keeping a boyfriend like Jake, who's popular and perfect. Addie, truthfully, is only popular by association. That night, Jake was away. Addie was insecure and sad. She went for a walk on the beach and ran into TJ. They talked, drank whiskey, and laughed, really laughed. Harder than she ever had with Jake. She laughed so hard whiskey came out of her nose. Jake would have been disgusted. TJ just smiled and said, "You're so pretty." Then they kissed. Then they went to his beach house. And she thought, well, at least it won't make it onto Gossip Girl, Simon's dead. Simon's memorial is being held at the school football field. Almost everyone's attending. Cooper is on his way with his parents when he sees Leia. You headed to the memorial? He asks. Leia freezes. What? And immediately, Cooper knows he messed up. Last year, Leia tried to take her life because of Simon. He exposed her for sleeping with freshmen and didn't let up. She was bullied, threatened, cancelled. She tried to slit her wrists in the bathroom. Her mom saved her in time. She never returned to school that year. You think I'm going to the memorial? Leia says. Good riddance. No one could even stand him. Everyone's holding candles like he was some kind of martyr. But he was a gossiping, petty little creep. Cooper doesn't really disagree. I guess people just want to pay their respects. Leia scoffs. Hypocrites. You see the new Tumblr post? He hasn't. Take a look. She says. It reads, to clarify a few things, Simon had a deadly peanut allergy. So you think, why not slip peanuts into his food? But Simon's cautious. His lunch is wrapped in cellophane a dozen times. He only drinks from his water bottle, and he never lets it out of his sight. But here's the thing, Simon drinks water constantly. He's impulsive about it. I knew that without that water bottle, he'd look for water somewhere else. So I waited until he filled a cup of water. Then I added peanut oil. I didn't feel bad watching him die. But I'm not a sociopath. If I could have helped, I might have. But I couldn't. Because I'd already stolen his EpiPen. And every EpiPen in the nurse's office. By the time he collapsed, it was already too late. Oh my God, Cooper says. I hope they find whoever wrote that. That's sick. At Simon's funeral, officers are everywhere, some in uniform, some in plain clothes. Nate goes with his probation officer, a kind woman who knows he's better off with his negligent father than in state care. After the service, all 4 students from detention are asked to visit the station, just a few blocks away. Addie goes first. She's alone. They bring in a woman from the school as her support person. This isn't an interrogation, Detective Wheeler says. You don't have to answer. You can leave at any time. Jake is texting her, asking how it's going and if she needs a ride. Later, she lies to him, saying the cops don't have a clue, they were just stuffing themselves with donuts. Back in the station, Detective Wheeler speaks gently. I don't think this was intentional, Addie. I think this was just a mistake that went too far. You kids got overwhelmed. That's understandable. I don't know what you're talking about, Addie says. Well, let me show you something. We got into the admin panel of Simon's app. Here's a post scheduled to go live the day he died. Addie reads, "Good girl BR, Bayview's academic star, didn't get that A in chemistry through hard work. Try stealing from Mr. C's Google Drive. Someone should call Yale. NM? Everyone knows he's a drug dealer. MLB plus CC equals green. But did you think that performance was natural? Or enhanced? And AP plus JR? High school sweethearts, unless you count AP's summer detour to TF's house. Even more awkward when you realize they're best friends. Wonder if they compare notes." Addie's world starts to crumble. She can't breathe. "It didn't publish?" she asks. "No," Wheeler says. "Simon didn't get the chance. But the fact that the four of you were in the room with him that day? The same four he was going to expose? That's not a coincidence." He keeps going. "Addie, the peanut oil was slipped into Simon's cup after he filled it. Mr. Avery left the room. There were 6 people present. Then Simon died. The 4 of you had motive. Maybe this was a group decision. But you don't have to take group responsibility. Did someone tell you to take the EpiPens?" "I didn't lie. I forgot, Addie."